Miss Amy at the Grass Valley Library. Thanks for joining me today for Random Acts of Science. I'm actually doing some science from home today because I'm teleworking this week. So welcome to February, where we're going to do four science experiments that are all somehow themed around hearts or Valentine's Day. So if you haven't already picked up a bag from the Grass Valley Library, you can do that. If you'd like a bag delivered to a different library to pick it up somewhere else, give us a shout and we'll put it in the delivery for you. Inside the bag, you're going to find a description of the experiment that we're going to do today, which is called I Heart Oobleck. We're going to make some Oobleck today. It has the ingredients list. It also has instructions on how to do the experiment. On the back side, more information about the science. Also in the bag, you're going to find a bag of cornstarch. There's 1 cup in there. And you are going to find a smaller bag that has some heart-shaped beads in it. And we're going to work with all of this within our Oobleck to find out how it works. You're going to need a couple of items from home as well. First of all, you're going to need a measuring cup and a half a cup of warm water. You are going to need a mixing bowl to mix things with, a spoon, and I've got some other things here, a cookie cutter, along with the beads. That's going to be kind of fun to play with that. And you're going to need some food coloring. Red is the color that we picked because it's February and Valentine's Day, but you can choose any color you want. You can just leave it without food coloring if you want. It's totally optional. If you have some glitter, that's another pretty fun one to use with this, and you can throw it in there. I didn't want to put it in your bags today. So first things first, Oobleck is kind of like slime and it's messy. So if you have to have room to take it outside or do it in the garage or something, that would be ideal. If you don't, just make sure you have a space that you can keep clean and clean up afterwards. So I have a table I can wash down, and I've got a cookie sheet, and I put some wax paper on top of it, and that'll keep that cookie sheet easy to clean as well. So, all right, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna make our Oobleck, and then we're gonna play with it. So you're going to take your 1 cup of cornstarch. You want to double this recipe. If you have a lot of people that want to try it, you can definitely do that. So I'm going to throw that in here. Another note as we're making this, Oobleck is not really great for keeping long term. Like, it doesn't do great in the fridge or anything. So when you're done, I suggest you throw all of this away. It's easy to make and costs just pennies to make it at home. So I would suggest going that route if you can. Okay, so here is our cornstarch. So we've got that in the bowl. And then we're going to take the warm water, half a cup. We're going to take our food coloring and we're going to add a couple drops. So we're going to be talking about Newtonian fluids today and non-Newtonian fluids, which sounds super crazy. But this food coloring and this water, they're examples of Newtonian fluids. And a Newtonian fluid is something that has a constant viscosity, which means it flows at about the same rate and you can kind of expect what's going to happen. So and just notice when I poured the food coloring into the water, it kind of dissolved within it, right? So as far as viscosity goes, the flow rate of it, think of it as if you're pouring water out of a glass, it's all going to pretty much come out at the same rate. If you're pouring, say, shampoo or something thicker like that, it might come out slower, but it's still going to be at about the same rate as all the shampoo coming out at, it's all going to come out at about the same rate, but different than water for sure. So what we're going to be talking about here is non-Newtonian fluids. Oobleck is one of them. And what happens with Oobleck is when we're going to stir the water into the cornstarch, and we're going to do it really slowly but firmly with that spoon. And instead of the water dissolving into the cornstarch, or the cornstarch dissolving into the water is more correct, those particles, those molecules of cornstarch are going to suspend in the water, which means they're just going to kind of hang out in there and freeze. Gravity's not really going to affect them. They're not going to go anywhere. They're just going to suspend in that water. So that's different than when we put the food coloring in the water. That dissolved into the water. It all became like one big, the same thing, right? And if I pour it out, it's all going to pour at the same rate. But with Oobleck, the cornstarch suspends in there instead. So when you're stirring it, pay attention. If you stir it hard or fast, and you put some pressure on it with your spoon, all the molecules are going to clump together and it's going to form a solid. If you take the pressure off, the molecules are going to spread back out again, they're going to resuspend in the air, and you are going to have a liquid again. So this is a non-Newtonian fluid. That's what makes it so fun to play with. So I'm going to go ahead and add the water to the oobleck. I'm going to do it a little bit at a time. It doesn't really matter how much you add. You can start with that half a cup, but definitely use a little bit less. Stir it all in before you add more water. And if you add too much water, you may be able to add some more cornstarch back in. Okay, so that was not enough water. I'm going to add some more. Let's try this one. Oh, and you can see it's getting a little goopy and hard to stir. If you want to put some gloves on and do it with your fingers, you can definitely do that as well. But you want to make sure you stir in all the water before you add any more water. Okay. I'm already seeing those Newtonian properties. I've got a solid here that I'm trying to make into a liquid. It's kind of funny. So mine is pretty much combined. And I think the secret is doing it a little bit at a time. And then we can play with it and see what happens. So I'm going to add some of these heart-shaped beads into the mix, and I'm going to see what happens with those. That was pretty cool. They kind of drop and get absorbed in there. That's pretty neat to see that happening. It feels like a solid, and yet they disappeared in there. It's kind of like quicksand. You can also work with a cookie cutter if you have some, and see what happens when you press down with a cookie cutter. Does it get to be liquid? Does it get to be solid? What all happens with it? So enjoy, play around, see what happens, and kind of explore the properties of a non-Newtonian fluid. So when you're all done, like I said, don't hang on to it, but also don't put it down the drain. Make sure you put it in a baggie and throw it in the trash. It's not great for the plumbing, that's for sure. So happy February. Thanks for joining me this morning, and we will see you next time on the next episode of Random Acts of Science.